Hello, my name is Lucas. This is Strike the Sun MD, my YouTube channel. And I thought I would make a video on my iPhone. I had initially planned to every week make an episode talking about the merits of make a video talking about the merits of every episode of Star Trek 1 week at a time, one episode at a time. And I was almost done making the second attempt at the video for The Cage, the original pilot of Star Trek, the original series, and I was enjoying myself. I was getting things done. I was probably 95% of the way there. I just needed to do a few fine-tuning things, and then it would have been just process and upload, no problem. But I realized before I started working on it again, because I took a small break, I was thinking to myself, if I do this every week, at some point, while I'm okay with it now, I will go crazy and I will hate this and resent it, but force myself to do it so that you get the idea. And I don't want to make Star Trek work, and I don't want to make this work. I don't mind working on the channel, doing it for fun though, not to drive myself insane. So I decided against doing that. But I wanted to make a video still, because I have it in my schedule to make a video on Tuesdays. And so with that in mind, I thought, why not talk about some books? Given that this is very literarily based. And I thought I would talk about what I'm currently reading. I'm holding my iPhone on a octopus leg tripod. I don't know what else to call it. I think that's what it's called. And let me see. Let me open my Kindle. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Where are we? Here we go. Let's go to the front page. Oh, gosh. Sometimes it can be so... Cover. Here we are. I'm reading a New York Times bestselling author, James Luceno, Star Wars Extended Universe novel, Tarkin. I'm about 5 chapters in, and I started the 6th one. He's a hard-nosed, tough guy, that's for sure. Oh no, I didn't start the 6th chapter. I just accidentally swiped a page ahead. But it's pretty intense. I think he does a pretty good job. It's really good so far, the way they've characterized Tarkin and developed his backstory and who he is and how he is and why he acts the way he does. I was surprised to find that I enjoy this novel. I am not done, but it will be the video I do a review on later this week, because it's good fun. I really enjoy it, and I'm hoping that the rest of it is entertaining, because there's this thing in his backstory when he's just a teenager or a young guy, where this pirate is stealing from this trading company, and he figures out a way to stop them, even though she's been able to escape and she's been torn to pieces and had body parts replaced. She does not realize how good he is at persuading people not to act in ways that are not conducive to the Republic, the Empire, his bosses, basically. And she gets it, and he sends a message loud and clear, and it's just intense, and it makes sense because you find out about his childhood and the trials and tribulations of that. what his parents made him go through to prove himself as a Tarkin. And yeah, and you see how incredibly intelligent and calculating this man is. And it's an interesting character study, I suppose. He's not unique. In some respects, there are people that have existed just like this portrayal of Tarkin, but it is fun to read. It is enjoyable. It's no high literature, but it is. The boundaries of my reading are sort of breaking loose. They're expanding wider and wider and wider. Anyway, I'd also like to talk about some other books. Maybe I should finish them. I read pretty fast, but these are 4 books that I'm hoping to finish this month, and that I will get some review videos in on for this month. And I'm just playing with the books now, but let's talk about Giovanni Boccaccio's The Decameron. I have a Penguin Classic Edition. It's in not rough shape. It's got a few scratches here and there. I've heard it's a lot of, it's kind of rough back here. I bought it new like this. Chinese don't really care, I guess. As you can see, the little 114 yuan. Ever since the world began, men have been subject to various tricks of fortune. That is the quote at the top there. I don't know much about it. I know it's really influential. It must be worthwhile if it has survived the test of time. It came out during the Black Death, after all, so whatever's in here is going to be fascinating, I suppose, because that's such a dark, dark time. So I'm quite excited to read it. I don't know much about it. I think it's a series of loosely related short stories. I don't know for sure. That's my impression of what I have heard of it. Okay. Well, why don't I just read the back, like an intelligent person might do? In the summer of 1348, as a Black Death ravages their city, 10 young Florentines take refuge in the countryside. They amuse themselves by each telling a story a day for 10 days. They are destined to remain there. 100 stories of love, adventure, and surprising twists of fate. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it has sort of a frame narrative, I suppose. It's a story about people telling stories. I keep looking at myself. I don't want to make the same mistake I made in my first Poetry Thursday video, where I just stared into the abyss of the camera lens. But it also looks weird if I'm constantly looking at myself, so I'm just going to keep having shifty eyes, I suppose. So yeah, 2 other books. I have been trying to read more science fiction and fantasy, thus the Tarkin novel. Thus the Tarkin novel. And I am a fan of the TV show Game of Thrones, who, of course, the source material was written by George R.R. Martin, who had, before his passing, from what I understand, worked very well with Gardner Dozois, who was a science fiction fantasy editor from Asimov's. I don't know, I only did a little bit of research on him, but I have heard high praise of the Book of Swords, Part 1, with a whole bunch of stories about swords and sorcery, I believe. Or it might just be about fantasy stories dealing with swords. I believe each thing in here, from Robin Hobb, K.J. Parker, Ken Liu, Matthew Hughes, Kate Elliott, Walter John Williams, Daniel Abraham, C.J. Cherie, I don't know, and Garth Nix, all edited by Gardner. I believe they all, in some different way, reflect upon what swords mean, how they're used in fantasy stories. And there's a part 2, which has the aforementioned George R.R. Martin. It has a novella that is based on the Game of Thrones, or the A Song of Ice and Fire universe, about a Targaryen king facing rebellion from armies of peasants, religious zealots, and even from his own family. Embarking on a vicious struggle for survival, he burns his name into the history of Westeros. Maegor the Cruel. Sounds good, I think. And this one with Robin Hobb's prominently displayed name and her story contains the story by Robin Hobb, her father's sword. Raiders have destroyed Tara's village and taken her father, but a messenger, the king's bastard son, warns the villagers to prepare for worse to come. He says their loved ones will soon return from the sea as mindless, heartless brutes. The Forged. Yeah, I've never really gotten into fantasy or science fiction. I am more apt to enjoy fantasy. I don't know what it is about science fiction, even though, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that I was going to talk about Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I love science fiction as a film medium. I think it's great. As a book, as literature, it doesn't do as much for me. I mean, it might have all these great concepts and things to consider. There are books that I have enjoyed that have been science fiction, and have like made me think about things, but it never really clicks with me, and I don't ever feel like going back until I think, oh, I should give science fiction another shot. But yeah, so there's that, and the other thing, and the one before that, and a reread for something that I convinced a friend of mine to read years ago when Trump won the election. We'll leave it at that. As it's described by some person at Guardian, the definitive novel of the 20th century, its themes continue to reverberate with prophetic menace into the present. 1984 by George Orwell. As you can see, this is a man who's had his face stomped in with a boot repeatedly for all of time, or however that quote goes. Yeah, I suppose it's fitting, given the way time and time again Trump has acted, and his recent actions, they just get worse. They find new territory to further develop the rot in America. And anyway, I've been meaning to actually reread this since 2015, before Trump even announced his presidential campaign. It's been, I think, 10 years since I've read this book. I read it shortly after high school, or right at the end of senior year, I think. It might have been in the summer, might have been at the end of the year. I don't know, it might be 9.5 years or something. But this is 1984. It is the only book that has ever made me scared. I mean, yeah, the world they live in is horrifying. Maybe it's unrealistic. I don't really know. But it feels terrifying. I would not want to actively be in a position like that, although you could say, given the country I live in, it's something like that. But anyway, there are similarities in the modern world to this. It feels prophetic, definitely. Not just in the country I live in, but also my home country, America. But not even those two, in any country, really, given the way that we have developed as a species. Horrifying. But I want to make this quick, don't want to go too much longer. This has gone on long enough. There's a point, I figure this is a super old book, so I'm not going to be spoiling too much. If you haven't read it, you should read it. Stop now. There's a point that is horrifying and scared me. There is the whole mind control thing at the end. There's the whole, everything that happens throughout. There does seem to be some kind of hope, given the fact that, I mean, I've seen other editions that have like this rubbing away effect, and you see it's all black, and then under the rubbed away thing, you have the name of the book come out, and that's kind of inspiring and hopeful. And I believe that there's some like appendices. Yeah, I just saw some appendices, an appendix that sort of make it seem like things did change. So there are reasons to see this as weirdly hopeful, I guess. I don't know. I've never actually read the appendices or the appendix. But when Winston and Julia, I think is her name, are in the proletariat shopkeep's attic, and they're talking basically about treason and how they're treasonous and how they're dead, essentially, if they get caught. And one of them, I think Julia, says, "We are the dead." And Winston replies in kind, "We are the dead." And out of nowhere, the guy they thought they could trust, that was a higher-up person sympathetic to the cause, "You are the dead," threw this book clear away from me, utterly horrifying. That's the only time I've ever thrown a book away in horror. And it has stuck with me. It is really, it changed me, that moment. And I have to thank George Orwell for that. I do like his writing in general. But yeah, that's, I guess this is a TBR that's gone on long enough. And I'll stop it there. Thank you. Bye.